and let's get into the conversation. Before we do, I would like to do a couple of intros and just kind of let people know who's online. If anybody wants to say something, that's fine. But the our panelists today, we have Mopreme Shakur, we got Edo G, and if you could see your screen, they have their names on there. Don't know who they are already. We have CoChise and Karen Steele-Clark of Right Track Program, CoChise the Beast. You know what I mean? We also, this was put together by my friend Mina Kim and myself and my brother Frank Eason. Of course, this whole thing couldn't be possible without Diane Wong. She is everything that you would want in a leader. So I'm so glad that Minister Server came on through to shine with us and give us some of his enlightenment. Dedan Skillz, who is one of my best friends on the planet, he's here to represent what the struggle is on the underground. So we got some very profound people up here to talk about this issue of hip hop, this issue of appropriation, as well as unification.
Word,
Hey,
word,
hey,
more fire,
All
Yeah.
right.
more fire.
word up, respect,
Damn, I
respect.
love hip hop.
Hey, yo, is that
Okay,
my man Ghost Cam in there?
yeah.
Word.
Yep. So from there, we felt like, my man Edo came down to Atlanta and, shed some light with us and helped us get that going. So I felt like it would be nice to show that at the beginning. So
Yeah, yeah.
getting on into it, y'all. Mopreme. I
Sir.
wanted to kind of get with you and Edo in the beginning of our show because we've been told some things about, you guys are on a schedule. You have to run. So some of these questions, and not any disrespect to anybody else on the panel, I'm going to give some of those questions to them first so that they can answer them, and then we'll all have a chance to get a chance to touch it. By the way, my lovely moms is on the line. Hey, mom, how you doing?
Salute, moms.
Can't front on your moms. I don't care how large you get.
Hello.
Okay, so uh, before we begin, we have to do things spiritually. Our hostess with the mostest, Diane Wong, is going to step us off into something spiritual before we get into the meat of things, because that is our people and that's how we do. So, Diane, take it away.
Well, thank you. And yes, we have to give credit or just speak up for the creator of the universe. And so, on behalf of the Racial Justice Collaborative, we are honored to have Sundiata, Mina, Lane, Larry, so many here that are with the collaborative. So let's bring it down and come into our breathing. Feel breath come into your body through your nostrils. Just take a breath in and be grateful for the breath you're taking in. Inhale, and then just exhale. And just be aware of that life giving breath. Take another breath in. This time, maybe close your eyes. Take a breath in. Feel it coming in, feeding all the cells in your body. And exhale. Ah. Now, on the next breath in, let's bring an awareness into our heart space, not just where your heart is on one side of your chest, but the whole heart space of your body, your whole space. Bring a golden light into that heart space and feel love. Just as you breathe, as you inhale, feel love and more love. Love for, let's love all the people who came before us, all of our ancestors. Just feel, send out vibes of love and appreciation because each one of them had to be and to live and to struggle to be there so that you can be here today doing what you're doing. So let's take a breath into the heart, open up, make that golden heart get bigger with the love that you feel, and start to allow the images. You know who they are. Some of them you don't know, but you know they were there. And see the long lines all the way back to the beginning of time. It's big crowd, and they're all looking at you. So feel them looking at you, and then see them. They raise their hands, and love comes out of their arms, comes directly into your heart, and you send love directly to them. So it's back and forth. You're sending love to all the people who had to be there to make it possible for you to be here, and they're sending you their love. So receive it and breathe and inhale, feel more love and more and more, and spreading out. Feel all of the love of your ancestors coming to you today in this moment. And you send all the love you have back to them in gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And then exhale. And just let it all, feel it all relax into you. That you're here for a reason. You're here to be here in this moment, and they're with you. And release. And then you can slowly start to bring yourself back into this moment so we can go on. We're honored to have hip hop here, hip hop legends here with us today. Thank you. Thank you for toward all of your ancestors, all of you for being here today. Thank you.
Yeah. All right.
Ashe, Ashe.
Ashe.
Word.
All right, all right. So now that we got it set off right, you got to have that
Word.
feminine energy, that yin energy to match our yang energy so we can move on with this thing, right?
Word up.
Okay. So getting off started, Mina. Mina didn't, go ahead, Mina. I wanted Mina to introduce herself and to speak quickly about what we discussed for this show, because Mina did a lot of hard work, and we're going to get into questions.
Hi, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here, and I'm really grateful for everyone who's joined, and really grateful for Sundiata for being a part of this process with me, where we've created a space to share our cross-cultural experiences related to art and music and dance, but also our connections to different systems of oppression. So it's been really great working with him on this, and of course, you know, with Frank and Diane and other members of the Racial Justice Collaborative. So just briefly, I wanted to share one visual that really comes from the conversations that Sundiata and I had when it came to exploring what is cultural appropriation. And so this is sort of something that captures our back and forth about cultural appropriation. And so just to like read through it, at one point, Sundiata mentioned how, you know, hip hop accepts guests because guests can add on to the culture, but not when guests perpetuate caricatures of people or the culture of the originators. And then we got into a conversation about, you know, the power dynamics that go into who controls media, who controls culture, and how that affects people who are trying to really represent the cultures that they're from, that they care about, and that are connected to their communities. And so this is just to show you how this panel idea came to be. And for myself, I work in arts and culture. And so I really believe in the power of music and any sort of cultural expression in really eliminating systemic barriers, but then also illuminating ourselves and illuminating how we relate to our community and how to really strengthen our community, which I know a lot of our guest panelists today also align with in their work and their art. So just really thankful to be here. And Sundiata, should we start with the questions?
Yep, let's get it started. And I appreciate that from you, Mina. I asked these people to be online today because I wanted to have some people who are like professionals. We talk about this in the Right Track program a lot with CoChise and Karen and some other people, where we need people like us who have been through the culture, and especially artists who've actually been in the industry, to be able to give some insight and wisdom as to what's going on some of these questions that your average person is not necessarily going to ask or discuss. So I'm glad you came. First question going will be this one. First question is, Mopreme,
Sir.
you have a history being in hip hop. Can you briefly talk about how you came into hip hop? And I know that you come from a powerful family in hip hop. So I would like for you to express that in your words.
Um, well, I got my break as far as hip hop and the music industry in Oakland, California. From New York, I started basically working on my demo in Oakland, and I got a shot. I got an opportunity from Tony. And so, I'm like the first one in my family to break the, entertainment game, the rap game. And then Pac came, and then, I was part of his career as well.
Nice. And now you were both. Would you like to speak about your family influence that kind of inspired both of you?
Well, we are, Shakur's,
Right.
my father's Dr. Matulu Shakur.
Talk about it.
Um, he is a revolutionary activist, acupuncture doctor, and he's also a prisoner of POW. Basically, he's a member of the Republic of New Africa. He's a lot of things, and he's being currently uh, unjustly held past his time. At this point, it's like 33 years in federal prison for trying to help the people. Um, so, and then my brother, Tupac, his mother is a Afeni. We have different mothers.
Uh-huh.
And Afeni raised Pac, and then we spent time together as kids, as shorties on up, And when we broke the music industry, we rode together to the end.
Mm, no doubt. Okay. Edo, would you add on to what Mo was talking about with your experience in hip hop? How did you get involved into it?
Man, I got into it, through beat and break dancing in the early '80s,
Yeah.
and then, yeah. You was around.
Hold on, Ed. Remember, Sean used to tell you could do 21 backspins. That was the legend back in the day. That Edo could do 21 backspins, and he's like, "Yo, nobody could do 21 backspins, son."
Word.
Go ahead, Ed. My fault. No, it's all good, man. We go way back, D. So it's history. But yeah. So from there, transitioned into beatboxing and rapping around 85, 86. Put out our first record in 86. I was beatboxing on it. I was a little kid, 16 years old. And then just kept at it from there, man, until, late 89, 90. Ended up getting a record deal with my cousins, the Awesome Two, out of New Jersey, New York. And the rest is basically history. 91, the first album came out, Life of a Kid in the Ghetto. put Boston hip hop on the map. 30 years later, still here.
Word.
You know, got a new project dropping next Friday. You know what I'm saying? So
Nice.
still going, man.
Nice, nice. So you said this is your 30th anniversary?
Yeah, for the Life of a Kid in the Ghetto album. It came out March 1991. You know what I'm saying? And we in 2021. So yeah, 30 years ago we put that out.
30
Right.
years ago, you put that out. 100 years ago, Tulsa happened. You see how progression happens? Seems like there's numerology going on, and we're putting a positive end on that. I appreciate that, Ed. Minister, I was going to go to Minister Server and CoChise and Karen. All of you know each other, and I want to ask about, you first Server, then going to CoChise and Karen, on to Dedan. What brought you into hip hop? Brother Server, what brought you in?
Well, I guess it started back in 1964 when I came down on a beam of light to the planet Earth. You know what I'm saying?
Word.
I am hip hop. You know what I mean?
Word.
No, but seriously, growing up in the 70s, rap music and things like that wasn't even something I was thought of. My first exposure was actually through The Last Poets. I have older sisters, and they exposed me to The Last Poets. So by the time Rappers Delight came out, I was already loving poetry and things of that nature. And, for being a rapper in high school, then a DJ in college, and moving to Atlanta and getting involved in the more of the cultural educational part, the hip hop beyond entertainment part. But it started like everybody else, we weren't even calling it hip hop. You just a rapper or a DJ or a b-boy or whatever. We were just at the jams having a good time. Only later did we begin to really look at the culture, like around the 90s, we begin to look at the culture and the way that we even talk about it now. So, it's been a blessing, to come to see it grow and to see what we're doing, and most certainly where it's going forward now in a global sense. So, yeah.
In the global sense, can you speak on that real quick? Then I'm gonna pass it off. What you mean by a global sense?
Yeah. Well, when you look at hip hop around the world, according to the United Nations, hip hop is the fastest growing culture in the world. Because you have people everywhere. There are people on the planet. People are expressing hip hop in their own way because it allows them their individual expression outside of any kind of system. You know what I'm saying? As far as me personally, I've been working with the Trinity International Hip Hop Festival at Hartford, Connecticut, through the Temple Hip Hop chapter there since 2007. Doing every year we do an international festival where we not only have an international concert, but we do workshops. International b-boy competition, graffiti exhibits, and we bring the community in. So we've had over 62 countries in the 50th. In fact, this year we just celebrated the 15th one. We did it virtually this year, of course. But the international side of the culture, they take the fullness of the culture. Whereas though in the United States, a number of times we're focusing on the entertainment aspects of it.
Right. Very good point. Me and Mina talk about that a lot. We might be able to come back to that later, but I want to keep it moving. CoChise and Karen, you both are involved in a hip hop organization, correct? That is there for youth as well as you have history as artists. So you're like practicing artists. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Peace. Honored to be on the panel. Respect to all the other, respect and salute to all the other panel members. So for me, I'm from East Flatbush, Brooklyn. You know what I mean? Grew up with a lot of the heads from that area. Little Sean, UTFO. A lot of those brothers. Actually, my first block party, UTFO, well, actually, Kango and Doc Ice was breakdancing in front of my house and rhyming. And me seeing that, I just, started me on this path. Wanting to be an artist, being an aspiring artist, doing a lot of different things underground in New York. But as I got older, starting to understand, because I'm an educator. So as an educator, just taking all the lessons that hip hop taught me into the classroom. And I'm a former teacher at Rikers Island, C74. And that's where I met my beautiful wife here. And we both use hip hop in the classroom with those young brothers. and expanded that to a bunch of different hip hop programs and partnerships with brothers like Minister Server. You know, I currently work at a college, and that kind of morphed into the program that we started called Right Track, you know, where we take the original elements and use those elements to educate youth, but also educate everybody about the culture. So we do programs for youth, we do corporate programs, we do college programs, whatever have you, and honored also to work with you, D, you know what I'm saying, as a teaching artist. And, you know, because I still write poetry, I still rap, you know, consider myself a teaching artist. And I let the Queen speak.
Thank you. Peace, everyone. Thank you. So,
Peace, Karen.
like Coach said, well, I'm from Brownsville, Brooklyn originally, and I was a teacher in the Rikers Island C-74 school system with adolescents. And I was very young myself and probably not even equipped to teach. So they taught me how to teach. And I found that hip hop was so easy for me to use. I never got the training formally, but I just felt like it was a tool for communication between myself and the young people in prison. So when Coach became a teacher, you know, we started vibing off of that. And, you know, this was a relationship that was built off of hip hop, and it still is. We have a lot of, you know, businesses and enterprises, and hip hop remains the focus in our life and our passion. And not only is our organization Right Track program for youth, but it's supposed to be a bridge between the elders and the youth of today. That's something that we have to do better as elders and youth, to not alienate each other. Like I said, I still teach to this day. The teaching is the only thing I've ever known how to do in life. And it's a tool that allows me at this age to continue to communicate with my students, and they're still teaching me. I'm still learning, and they're still my teacher.
Good. Thank you for that, Karen. And well, let's move on to Dedan Skillz up in the building out there in LA. Yo, this is one of my oldest partners that I can really think of who didn't come from Boston. You know what I'm saying? So let me let him speak, because we did a lot of work in Atlanta, and he ran a long running radio show called the Panther Power Hour. It ran for about 6 years, talked about all types of political things. We were the ear of the street. So Dedan, what brought you into hip hop, and what is your influences?
Well, being from Los Angeles, I just, anything on the television screen or coming out the radio that was from Black people, I just kind of followed, you know. It went from Michael Jordan, Len Bias, Magic Johnson to KRS-One and Chuck D. It's just whatever was going on with Black people that was influencing everybody, I wanted to be in. And my cousin, I have a cousin that was in hip hop, very influential in LA. He used to be a pop locker, break dancer, and he became a DJ. His name was DJ Bobcat. And he linked up with the East Coast. And what was going on was kind of like Kyle was raised, you know, like Malcolm X, you know, Geronimo Pratt. When I heard Public Enemy and all that stuff, it kind of integrated what I was already taught. So when the message came out, it just became my mission, because that song was the gap of understanding. Like, my parents understood what was going on with us when they heard the message. Everybody heard that song and was like, oh, okay, we could build off this song, because it's making it plain and simple what's going on in our community. And you know, I've been rolling with hip hop since then.
Wow, D, it's interesting you said that, because my mother, who's online, that's probably the only hip hop song she really knows. Don't push me, cause I'm close to the edge.
Everybody could relate to that song.
Everybody could relate.
That was the one.
That's word. Word up.
Shout out to that too, man. That's my brother. We were signed to the same label. He was DJing for this cat named Billy Box. And we were signed to the same label when I first got my first record deal. So they were signed too. So I met Cat way back in '91.
Oh, word up.
Wow.
Respect.
Big up. You know, so hip hop is definitely shown to, and everybody on this line has some form of experience that brought them into hip hop or a person or something. But so to move it on, how would you and I'm gonna what's that? Somebody say something? Okay. I was just saying here's the next question. Uh how was understanding change? Well, and let me ask you this, Mopreme, before. How was your father's work connected with your vision of hip hop? Like how would you say that that element of our existence is linked in with hip hop?
Okay, my father, my family, Fanny, they were community organizers, right? And I was in the hip hop community, right? But until I got older, I didn't know how we can use it more effectively. And you know, eventually we saw that it was a tool, you know.
Right.
You know, it's a tool that we could use for several things. We could use hip hop for peace of mind. You could use hip hop for to, you know, game, and then you could use hip hop as a tool to talk to the people about certain issues.
No doubt.
You know, and we were also fans of PE and KRS-One, and you know the messages were changing at that time. You know, as you know, Feels Good. I came out on Feels Good in like 1990, 91 as well. While y'all was dropping them albums, I had that, and but I was influenced by the same hip hop influences. You know what I'm saying? The messages that we influence. I love hip hop, y'all. Can I say that one time? Shout
No
out to all.
doubt.
I love hip hop. I love
I
it.
love hip hop.
30
Word up.
some years later, Edo, you know what I'm saying? I was a fan. We were fans. Pac was a fan. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying?
I spoke to the brother on the phone. We talked about doing song together, you know, so
Yeah.
definitely. And I was a fan of you, fan of Tony, another label, my distributor with Mercury. So those was the guys, and y'all came out with that. That was other level, man, other
Right,
level.
right. So you know, it was a blessing, that period in me and Pac's life. That period, we was both, you know, number one at the same time. So we didn't want to waste that opportunity. And you know, so we would, especially with Pac's first project, we wanted to talk about social issues. You know, the Brenda's got a baby, keep your head up. You know what I'm saying? That was the original mission, you know. And Dedan was out here in LA, and you know, we was linking up, we was trying, you know, but hip hop is hip hop. You know, we're faced with a lot of struggles, you know what I'm saying? And we all get into it with not a lot of uh, uh, education. Only education about the game we have is what we learned in our environments growing up in those records.
No
You
doubt.
know, and how to make it better. Like, you know, we do have to improve on, you know, the OGs relaying those positive messages to the youth. We gotta do a better job on that for sure.
Big up to that. If y'all, I see y'all shaking your heads, but yeah, what Mo just said is the real at the bottom of what we need to do. I'm not saying everybody has to be positive, but we have to have a more positive focus if we're gonna try to survive. I deal with. Good. You wanted to speak on that, Minister Server?
Yeah, I mean, what we always just talk about is balance, man. All of us can, relate to a time where we can listen to Kid and Play, Edo G, NWA, Public Enemy, and it wasn't any kind of conflict, man. We know in 1996 when they deregulated, our radio and things of that nature, that's when the shift started happening. And unfortunately, that's when a lot of my peers, kind of turned away from the culture and began to allow the entertainment industry to do what they're doing now. But, every artist has a right to express themselves. We just want more balance, man. That's all we're talking about.
Word,
Yes.
word.
Yes. Yes. As a matter of fact, if you went into that, Minister Server, that was one of the questions that how has it changed in hip hop from anybody who wants to speak on this perspective, and what are the economics of hip hop? You know, that's where we start seeing that change, right? So anybody who wants to jump on that, step to it.
Before you jump in, I gotta bounce, y'all. I apologize.
Mo,
Profusely. Much love and respect to everybody.
Salute.
Dedan, I'm so salute to all of y'all. Please,
Yes.
Dedan, good looking out on this, having me be a part. Anytime y'all need me, holla. I apologize again, but I got, you know, it's been.
Hey Mo, I appreciate you coming through, man. It's been a long time since I saw you, since we did that joint back in the day, right?
Word. Hip hop for life and love. Love.
Peace.
Peace.
So, what was we were saying? What has changed, and what about the economics? So, feel free to jump in. Whoever wants to speak.
Yo, I'll jump in on that, man, because I got to run soon too. So, you know, I just think I did a class called the Commodification of Hip-Hop with this professor, and it was basically, you know, just about how hip-hop has ingrained in every part of our society. You know what I'm saying? You can't find a Toyota commercial without, you know, animals rapping, or, you know, white ladies from the suburbs spitting bars. You know, it has infiltrated every part of society. There's no part of society where hip hop isn't included. So, you know, we just have to be the owners of that music, of those things. You know, we have to be the owners. My advice, you know, to cats is, you know, own your masters, man. That's the best thing you could do. That's longevity. That's money for your family, for your future, you know, forever. It won't stop. You know what I'm saying? So I just think people, you know, with the age that we're in now, a lot more, a cat can do it from his house. And, you know, he don't have to go to New York like back in the days when we was young to get a record deal. Or if you up in the Bay, go down to LA, or, you know, DC going up to New York, whatever. Everybody had to go to those two places to get on. Now you can Chief Keef it and be on, you know, probation and just make videos from your kitchen. And you know what I'm saying?
That's real.
So
That's real.
I just think that aspect is great for the youth, where, you know, they can just do it. They can, you know, a little bit of money, you can be successful. Now, it cost us a lot in the 80s, man. Studios were expensive. Reel-to-reels were expensive. Everything was expensive. It was really hard to make it. It's easy now. So, you know, that's my feelings on that, man.
Insight on that. That's major insight, Ed, because you've been on the inside and can speak on that. Somebody else want to hop to that? Economics. It's on your mind.
Well, you know what? Let me just, you know, jump in here right quick and add on to what Ed was saying. One of the things, you know, I mean, I look at hip hop generationally. You know, like, I'm on my hip hop grandpop phase. You know, I'm the you know, dopest hip hop grandpop ever. You know what I'm saying? That's my new title. You know what I'm saying? But we have to really start looking at it generationally, and we can't expect our young people to know what we're not consistently teaching them. You know, and we talk about the economic side of it, particularly. We know that the entertainment industry, when NWA debuted at #2 on the pop charts with E-Phil for Sagging or Niggas for Life, when they debuted #2 on the pop chart, the entertainment industry made their choice on what they were going to support. What they started beginning to call gangster rap, which for us was just reality rap and street rap, that they decided that that's what they're going to spend the majority of their money on. And at the same time, as I said, in 1996, when the FCC deregulated, that allowed these multimedia corporations to buy up the smaller stations, buy up the smaller record labels. So when we fast forward 25 years later, I'm not surprised that it looks the way it looks. I wrote an article in 1995, Nation Times Syndicate newsletter. It was called The Hip Hop Civil War, the culturalists versus the capitalists. We saw what was happening. You know what I'm saying? But on the same end, hip hop culture is not for everyone. Some people just like rap music. Some people are not concerned about the culture. So our thing is that we're not waiting for people to do for us what we can do for ourselves, which is why In 2001, we went to the United Nations to establish hip hop as an international culture for peace and prosperity. That's why we're celebrating right now the 20-year anniversary of the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace, which is a document of 18 principles that are not specific to any individual or any organization, but principles to live by. You know, because we've been saying, you know, rap is something you do, hip hop is something you live. Well, if we don't give our young people some kind of guidelines on how to live that way, then they're going to be just, you know, listening to whatever the mainstream tells them. And, you know, these are our children. We turn around and say it takes a whole village to raise a child, but if we're not holding ourselves accountable to what we didn't do and do what we didn't do now, then we have no one to blame. And economically, particularly, we know we live in America. Everything's about capitalism in this country. Everything, God, religion, schools, everything is about money. And we know that, which is why young people right now are, you know, they have the mindset of just get that bag, just get that bag. You know, no conversation about morality, you know, dignity, how you presenting yourself or your family, your community, get that bag. But again, I'm in the hip hop grandpa phase. So instead of complaining about it, I work with young people and try to show them the fullness and let them make choices. And because they are our babies, when we are there for them, they're going to make the right choices. Word.
Big up, Server, for that that Garveyite type of attitude about instead of complaining, do something about it. I like that. CoChise and Karen, you are part of an organization that deals with this is the problem. Let's do something about it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't look at the problem as hip hop. I think that's the thing. We're using hip hop to solve some of society's problems, some of the cultural problems in our community. I mean, we could sit here and all day, I'm just talking about us as Right Track, and discuss, you know, there's a lot of issues in hip hop, but there's a lot of issues in our community. And we just want to use hip hop, like the brother Edo G said. I'm not sure if it was Edo or Preem that said it, but, you know, it's a tool, and we can use that tool to fix some of the things. I just want to touch a little bit on the whole aspect of economics. And that's one of the things I committed myself a long time to be a social entrepreneur and to look to be able to create businesses that are going to help my community, you know, and teach young people that aspect of it. Teach them that they can have hip hop centered businesses that connect to young people and also help young people to grow and challenge themselves.
And be ethical, because that's the basis of hip hop. You bring that culture with you and you bring your ethics as you're doing business, whether you're a lawyer, a teacher, you're a hip hop artist, you take out the trash, whatever. It's all about bringing that culture with you and a culture of ethics in business.
And also teaching the young people that they are geniuses, just like the artists that they love. They are geniuses in the classroom and in all these different spaces, teaching them that hip hop is value-based and the main value is the value of the people.
Well said, well spoken. Dedan Skillz, how would you think that economics, what have you learned from your experience in hip hop and from watching other things and being the smart dude that you are? What have you learned or think about the economics of hip hop and what we could possibly do to positively benefit ourselves and our people?
Well, I feel it's a little complicated because I don't feel like everybody joins hip hop for the same reason. You know what I mean? That's what I figured out. It took me a while to kind of figure that out. And you can even look in the music and the environment and it kind of breaks it down. What I mean by that is, I'm going to be perfectly honest. Minister Server said some people in for the culture, some people in it for survival. You know, plain and simple. Capitalism breeds a lot of different things. And some people in the hip hop for straight money. Right. And that's it. And that's all. You know, and some people are in it to educate people. Some people are in it to expand the network and to help people and do community action. So what I think has to happen is I feel like the people that are on the same page, it's like Server said, we have to, it takes a little more action and some sacrifice. Like Edo and Mo, like those are examples of how we got to support those brothers just as much as we support the #1 artist that's out today. It's just the balance that we're talking about, and it could continue. I've spent the last like 5-6 years more studying the business side of it to kind of, you know, understand like where it's going. And I just feel like it's really hard for people to be a multitasker and be a real good artist and understand the music business, because if you really understand the music business, it wasn't set up for the artist. It was set up for the people that wrote the rules. Period. And we didn't write any of these rules, but we were the entertainers from back in the day, to Billie Holiday, Charlie Parker. They didn't understand publishing. It's still not a major Black publishing company or distribution company.
Can I ask Brother Dedan something?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, why do you think, you know, because you brought out a great point about the people who are benefiting. Why don't we always hold them to the same accountability that we hold these artists?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question. That's why the Panthers ain't here no more. That's why Malcolm ain't here no more. They had those answers.
Interesting. So as we see, you go ahead, Edo. I see you got something going on in your mind, brother. Speak on that, Ed. You on mute. You're on mute, Ed.
Oh, my bad. Peace. I just want to say salute to everybody, man. I gotta run. We doing this hip hop in VR. That's another thing I would, if I have more time, like to, you know, I'll jump back in next time y'all got you're doing the next one. Let me know, Frank. You know, and I'll jump back in to explain a little more about what we doing.
Yeah. Give us a minute on that, because that's something that as artists continue to look for things to do. I mean, you have to stay relevant and you have to keep looking for what's next. And I really appreciate what you found there. So just give us a quick minute on what this is so people know.
Yeah. Well, it's VR. It's these. We use the Oculus Quest 2. Y'all see the commercials for these joints with the, you know, little remotes. But inside that space, man, it's all virtual reality. And we created hip hop in VR. So we have a website called hiphopinvr.com. And we built my man has built the wild style actual replica of the Bronx where hip hop started. And we've been doing a park jam there once a month virtually. So people come in, we have all kinds of DJs, top DJs. We had DJ Red Alert last month, DJ Revolution, DJ Evil D. This month we got Red Matic from the West Coast, DJ Red Matic, PF Cuttin. Bunch of people in there, man. So we do a park jam monthly and we do hip hop shows. And you know, if I had more time, I would really be able to explain a little more in depth of what it is. But Frank knows about it. He's been there. He can tell y'all a little more. There's something you all should get into. Because it's just another medium and another way for us to spread, you know, the culture.
Yes, sir.
Oh.
Big up and salute to the General Edo G out of Beantown, my hometown.
Peace.
Yeah, I see you. I'll see you soon, Ed.
Yes, I'm gonna be back down there, brother, in a minute. Real soon.
I'm gonna be in Boston next week.
Oh well, we'll meet at Shiz's. You know how we do. You know
all right.
All right, y'all. Salute everybody. Peace.
Salute.
Take care.
Salute. So to keep it moving, because this has been a very moving conversation. For the people who are here, I had a couple of things, Minister Server. When we talked before on the phone, we discussed a number of issues, right? And you were talking about some of the things that the Temple of Hip Hop was doing concerning education. And you made a point about if we're not happy about what's going on in hip hop, some of it we have to take responsibility for because we haven't taught the younger generation certain things that they might need to know. And so we have to take some responsibility. Can you speak on that a little bit more?
Yeah, you know, I look at hip hop culture like any other culture. You know, it's like, you you know, there are Black people that don't understand Black culture, even though they were born Black. You know what I'm saying? It's the same type of thing. So, you know, I tell people, you know, you have millions of people that love reggae music, love Bob Marley, you know, the whole nine, but they know very little about Rastafarian culture. You see what I'm saying? Because that's the responsibility of the Rastafarian. I feel the same way about hip hop. You know, if you're not self-identified as being a part of hip hop culture, I'm not expecting you to do anything but be a consumer. You know what I'm saying? But on that same end, if you say that you are a part of this culture and that you identify as being a part of the culture, it's not unreasonable that I expect you to add on to our culture, that you can hold me accountable, I can hold you accountable, because we're building something not only for ourselves, but for our children and our children's children. That's what culture does. So when it comes to education, even the way that we frame it, you know, the challenges, in my opinion, is that what I like to call first generation hip hop, 40 and older. We kind of forgot how hip hop came to be. You know, hip hop came out of struggle. Hip hop came out of, you know, folks trying to kill us literally. You know what I'm saying? You know, came out of, you know, real hard times. So there's nothing new that we're doing. So when it comes to education, we have to, you know, first of all, start off, what are we trying to show our children through this culture? You know, my biggest complaint is that too many of my peers, again, the 40 and older, we forgot that, you know, it's bigger than rap. I know doctors, lawyers, professors, you know, rocket scientists, literally, that they would not be who they were if it wasn't for hip hop culture. And yet they allow the entertainment industry to turn them away from the culture. And my thing, again, we have to return to the culture, you know, and not beat ourselves up for what we didn't do, but we can see that the entertainment industry is not concerned about our youth. And for me, when it comes to education, you know, I said, I'm a father and a grandfather. I'm not running around the world playing hip hop. I'm looking for strategies that can help my children to live a better life and the people that they live around to live a better life. And hip hop, at its very core and its very essence, encourages you to be a better you, you know, from self-identification, self-improvement, self-empowerment, which leads to positive social change. Some people could care less about that. You know what I'm saying? But those of us that do, you know, what I like to do is connect with people like you all that are on this call, people that care about the culture, because as we all know, it's never the masses that transform the world. It's always a small group of committed people that are committed to seeing a change that they want to have and working toward doing. So, you know, it's not anything that's complex. It's not anything that takes a lot of money. It takes a level of commitment. And we have to, you know, take it beyond ourselves and look at our children and look at what the corporations are doing and how they're presenting hip hop, you know, and we have to counter program that, you know, and it's very easy to do, but it is a level of commitment. And my challenge is, too many of my peers, again, the 40 and older, we're just not, you know, looking at it from a wide enough lens. So we allow the entertainment industry to make us go to war against our young people over rap music. That's ridiculous.
You know, you said culture, Minister Server, and let me say this to the people. We're going to have questions and answers later. So if you have questions, put them down, write them down, or you can even put them in the chat. We'll get to them. And but to respect the time of the people who are on the panel, just to let them get through these topics. Minister Server, you said culture many times. For those on the line, can you define what do you mean by culture? Because, you know, it's a loosely used term. So what do you mean when you say culture?
Yeah, when I say culture, I'm talking about a value system. I'm talking about a level of accountability. I'm talking about adding on to the work that's already been done. You know, one of the things we say in hip hop, we bring nothing new to the game at all. We are the product of our ancestors. You know, so from all the way from ancient Africa all the way through now, you can chart directly who we are. So culture is the way that we live. From our spiritual paths, which is in hip hop, there are many spiritual paths. There are many races and cultures that unite in it. There's a set of values that people believe in, certain morals, a certain way that we carry ourselves, a certain way of living. You know, all those things go into culture. The foods we eat, how we dress, you know, how we communicate with each other, how we take care of each other. All those things go into culture for me.
I would agree. Dedan, CoChise, and Karen, would you like to add on to your definitions of what is culture and how it can be applied with hip hop?
What's the question again, Vex?
question is, what is culture to you, and how is it applied in hip hop?
Well, like I said earlier, I I think hip hop is kind of, it's like up to the individual, and what like Server was saying, I kind of built it where I come from. The culture was just kind of like taken on, like you said, from the last poets and others. So I just kind of, that's where I come from, and what I realized that different ages, they come into culture and they might take it in different ways. Like that was very prevalent in the culture, the political aspect in hip hop and the community aspect in hip hop was heavy for first generation people in hip hop. But in the 90s, when the money started coming in, people started achieving the American dream. They started making money off hip hop. It wasn't the same struggle anymore. And you can see it in hip hop. It went from community songs to being flashy. Now it's about how much money you have. So, like I said, to me,
but see, that's just rap music, though, Dedan. That's not the whole culture. That's just rap.
No, I'm not saying that's the whole culture.
Okay.
I'm saying it in most people's eyes. When you see hip hop on television, you know what I'm saying? It's gotten away from the culture a long time ago. I'm saying as a whole, with it being watered down and so much money involved, it became a part of America. When I was involved in hip hop wasn't trying to be a part of America. It was trying to show you the ugly reality of America on Black males, on Black women, on us in society. Now, hip hop is a part of it. Period. It's a part of the same evil. I'm not saying America's just evil, but the evil parts of America is we got more money than anybody. And how we got it's not a question. We went out and took it.
So hip hop is a reflection of the culture that it was born from.
Yes.
And so what it does is that it shows us the good, the bad, and the ugly. I've seen KRS-One discuss the same thing.
Exactly.
He said, but his point was, and it goes to what me and Mina talk about and how this whole thing came, is that it's either half full or it's half empty. You know what I mean? The when it first came around, like Server said, it got people involved. It brought people in. Then it got appropriated by those who saw what they could do with it. But it's half full, it's half empty, and it's a reflection of everything. KRS said, in hip hop, we have people who make music about killing, gangster stuff, prostitution, all types of stuff that we may not necessarily be proud of. But on the same note, we have people talking about self-empowerment, self-knowledge, health, wealth, you know what I'm saying? All these things. So we have to look for and realize that they are both there. Yeah, there's a polarity. And that's my whole point. And that was the whole point of this whole conversation between me and Mina, which kind of started just as a conversation. But it got deep. And you guys have definitely helped bring it to another level. We got some to kind of segue from, and coaching Karen, I want to hear what your definition of culture was. And then how do you see that as being linked in with hip hop?
Well, I just think that I always like to say it's bilateral communication. It's whatever the person bringing into it is. It's forever morphing. The hip hop that we grew up and listened to, it's a little different than what's out there, and that's okay. So hip hop is a culture that's ever changing, ever evolving, and it's whatever the person who is the person who has the equity in a culture says it is. So I don't really think there's a definition of what is hip hop, and I think we could say what it was classically, but I think that is changing. How we experience the culture is definitely changing. I mean, look at what Edo G shared with us about the VR. I mean, I just looked that up, and it's a phenomenal thing that's going on in our culture with the integration of technology in hip hop. So that's just cool to see how the culture is changing.
And for me, I think people have mentioned all the things. Culture for me is about your spirituality, your value system, you know, the way you are raised or raising your children. It's about the way that you speak, the way that you walk. I mean, the language. Hip hop is a language as well. So all of those things embody culture for me. You know, I just want to, you know, I wish I'd have got to give a shout out. I got to give a shout out to my sister who's on here, and one of my sister Carla. Thank you for coming. And you know, one of our brothers from Right Track. I think he might have stepped out as his birthday weekend, so I understand. Record your ripcord. You know, thank you for coming through. And thank you to Edo G. You know, not only am I a fan, but he has the Father's Day anthem in hip hop too. So you know,
yes, he does.
up.
Be a father to your child. Yeah, I appreciate that, CoChise. And I appreciate you too, Diane. Between me and you. So now at this point, we're almost getting to the point where we can ask some questions. You know, from the or have some comments from the people who came, because your opinions and your thoughts are important too. But before we get there, we pretty much expanded a little bit on both elements. We talked about, and I thank Dedan for pointing out some of those things that really need to be looked at on, you know, so we're not looking through hip hop through rose colored glasses. We really need to be seeing it for what it is, and not a lot of us at some point we grew up with it and it was great and it was the thing and it was, you know, it was, and it is still that for some of us, but you have to have a more realistic view. Sometimes you have to realize that these are people too. They go to the bathroom and they belch too. You know what I mean? So when you come into that and you get real, then I think it becomes a little more useful, this tool of hip hop. So on that note, can each one of you speak on how hip hop has been used to bridge cultures? Can you think of any time in your life where you met somebody, or you got involved to a group, or a thought changed you that you heard in hip hop? I'll set it off first by saying one of the people on this call, Dedan Skillz, is probably like he's one of my best friends on the planet because of a tape. He had a Public Enemy tape. It was the Fear of a Black Planet. He had it early because his cousin Bobcat used to have early copies of stuff. And so I came out of my dorm one day. I was at Clark. Came out of my dorm one day, and my homeboy introduced me to him. He's like, "Yeah, it's my man Dedan." I was like, "What's good?" You know, dudes from Boston ain't real close with you until they know you anyway. This dude said, "Yo, I got an early copy of Public Enemy tape." I was like, "Word!" And from there, we just started talking. And you know, he also had an early copy of KRS-One's Ghetto Blueprint of music, ghetto music. He had that too. So that right there made a friendship that has lasted over 30 years, just from the music. So I'm gonna say that, be quiet with it, and I would love for you guys to express some of the things that you feel like you have been unified, or some things you've seen in hip hop. Anybody can step in. Well, let me say, why don't we start with Dedan? I know you want to talk. Go ahead.
I do.
I hope you do.
Oh, always, always. Well, I can say that's yeah, hip hop has brought a lot of us together. You know what I'm saying? Mo was on earlier, and I got a great relationship with Mo and his brother before Pac passed. Me and Pac were in the New African Panthers together. Pac was the president, and you know, he kind of, after his death, it kind of put me on a mission to defending his honor. Because I just feel like a lot of people didn't know every side of where he was actually from or what he represented. So indirectly, I've been, you know, on a mission for that. But hip hop brought us together. For the very first time that we met, I walked in and he was rapping. And I wanted to tell him that my cousin was Bobcat and I wanted to try to hook him up. So we had a conversation and we stayed up all night talking about hip hop. The very first time we met. And we listened to Queen Latifah's record about 15 times, Princess of the Posse, and Wrath of My Madness. It's the A and B side on Tommy Boy. We listened to that record all night, and hip hop brought us together. You know what I mean? And like I said, him becoming one of the most influential voices in the world for Black males at his age, I see how powerful of a tool it can be used. You know, and so now my mission with Mo is to let people know about his stepfather and the original elements that got, you know, that helped shape the revolutionary side. So I just feel like hip hop can be used as a tool now for people to know about Mutulu Shakur, who some people have never heard of him, or Assata Shakur, if it wasn't for hip hop, when Chuck mentioned Joanne Chesimard and Rebel Without a Pause. So, you know, it could be used as a tool definitely to bring people together. So I don't know. I went off on my story, but that's how it's worked for me.
Appreciate that, D. I do. Minister Server, you want to speak on it, brother? Oh, wait. Yeah. Speak on that. And then Mina, after Minister Server speaks, we're going to go back to Coach and Karen and have them answer. And then I want you to say what was on your mind, because Mina has a special question for you. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, yeah, for me, again, you know, I started doing the international hip hop in 2007, man, and that's been just eye-opening for me, man. I tell people, if you've never been, hopefully next year we'll be back on the campus. It's typically either the last weekend in March or the first weekend in April at Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut, the Trinity International Hip Hop Festival. It's a wonderful weekend where you have people from all around the world that are using hip hop to make the world a better place. And for me, you know, that's what it's really about. You know, again, you know, hip hop allows us a space to be your authentic self, to bring your own, your full self to the picture to add on with people. So at the Trinity International Festival, like I said, we've had over 62 different countries. I'm also involved in a movement that's called Generation Hip Hop, that's chaired by Ndaba Mandela, the grandson of Nelson Mandela. So there's a lot of things that are happening in hip hop beyond entertainment that, you know, again, people that are not into the culture, that they're simply not aware of because they're just not into the culture. But hip hop allows people beyond race, beyond religion, beyond class, beyond ethnicity, all of the isms that people are being challenged with. Hip hop culture encourages all those different groups to come together in the oneness, you know, and to really bring their best work and their best selves. And the living example of that to me has been, you know, for the past 15 years, to actually see it in real life. Because it's one thing to talk about it, to actually see people from Russia. And, you know, I had an opportunity to be on a radio show in Prague and, you know, over in you know, Somalia and Tanzania. So there's, you know, the way that hip hop is being used right now, we are in good position because, mind you, you know, we're less than 50 years old as a culture. So when you look at the long view, 50 years is not even a blip on the timeline of humanity. It's not even a blip. But when you look at what we've been able to do in less than 50 years, without a formal plan, without any force, and with limited resources, for me as a minister, you have to see God in that. You have to see God in that. And, you know, the movement that I work with, Higher Infinite Power Healing Our People, Hip Hop Ministries, we invite people to bring their spirituality with them because it's the fullness of the culture that will help us to use this culture to, again, to enhance humanity. And at the end of the day, that's why I'm in it.
Because a rapper on a whole isn't even 20 years old. 50 years down the line, we can start this. We'll be
the old school artists, exactly.
Even in that time, I'll say around, yeah.
So listen, so all of us on this call, imagine when they talk about this call 50 years from now, 100 years from now, when they pull this footage up. We the old school.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah. CoChise and Karen, please speak on that.
I was just writing that in the chat.
My man Mark, what's good, Mark? You just writing that in the chat. Glad you're here, brother. We're gonna open it up and let some of our minds out in our audience speak too in a second. Go ahead, Cheese and Karen.
I mean, I come from a hip hop family, you know what I mean? So when we were introduced to the culture, you know, my brothers and I, You know, we aspired to be rappers. We aspired to be DJs. You know, I used to break dance. I'm not a good dancer, but I used to break dance and do all of the different things, trying to explain it to my daughter that, you know, it was a part of the culture. It was just something we did naturally. But also, you know, as I get older and as an educator, it's something that connects me to these students. And it's such a beautiful thing, you know, and I have students of all different persuasions, but also students of all different cultural references. Because I have a student named G-Day, you know, and he's 20 years old, but he only plays old school, you know, he's in, if I go in the game room where he works and I hear if I hear Big L on, then I know that's G-Day is on you know, on the music right now. And then there's some that, you know, they only deal with what's new and what's current, but we all speak a similar language and we all get a chance to interact and we all get a chance to talk about our experiences. You know, it's like the brother Lupe said, hip hop saved his life and it saved mine as well. You know, just finding a way to see people like me have a voice, you know, and we all have voices, you know what I mean? It's just discovering it and discovering that people that look like me, that talk like me, that walk like me were important. You know, that's pre-Black Lives Matter. Mm-hmm. We were saying we matter, you know what I mean? We were speaking it loudly, we matter. You know, we still have our issues and we still have things that we gotta talk about, both in the culture and in the industry. But at the same time, just being able to have this piece connect me, like my brother Server, that's how we met. I was at Morehouse and he came in, you know, he had a great idea to have a chapter of the Temple of Hip Hop at Morehouse. And since then we've been rocking, you know what I mean? He's a great resource for me, a great mentor and friend. So, you know, those different things, even, you know, I can talk about my brother D. So Sundiata and I met at a wedding for one of our other comrades, you know what I mean? And that night, you know, the night before the wedding, we were gonna have a cipher, not a bachelor party, we're gonna have a cipher. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? So how hip hop is that, you know what I'm saying? And of course, meeting my wife and connecting through hip hop is just beautiful. You know, I gotta get my daughter a little bit more involved, but you know, she loves hip hop too, but she has a lot of other interests. And I think that's something that we have to always keep in mind. The young people have a lot more stuff. Like we ain't have all this stuff. We only had hip hop. That's all we had.
But I can say as an educator, one way that I've kind of gotten kids back into the culture is just sharing with them our experiences as a family being vinyl collectors. So that's something that was awakened in our daughter recently, where now we've been going every weekend to shops looking for vinyl. And I've actually gotten the bug too. I don't know why, but Dedan talked about Tony. That was one of the first vinyls that I bought last month because I absolutely love Tony. I think they're an underrated band, but that's another discussion. So I tell my students, and that's exactly how the conversation started with my daughter. She was like, because we bought her dad a box of vinyl for, what was it, recently for something. I think it was the birthday, Christmas, I don't know. So she took the record to me and she said, can you explain to me, how do you listen to like song number 7? And I was like, okay, well, this is what you do. I said, well, first of all, you have to decide, you have to see if it's on the A side or the B side. You have to count the lines. And then she was like, whoa. That awakened something in her. And now she's a classicist. So she's collecting jazz and, you know, she's definitely a snob. She plays the violin. So she's definitely brilliant. She's brilliant at that age than I was at 25. So that's something that I taught her and my students. I'm like, the pleasure of owning vinyl is that you get to take it out and you get to read it. You get to own it. It's tactile. You get to feel it. And I was like, I'm not dissing, you know, modern music, but you can't own music that's in the cloud. It can disappear. Someone can steal it from you. Someone could hold it for ransom. But this vinyl is forever. So go talk to your grandparents and get them to have you become the steward and the archivist of that culture. Now it's passed on to you. And the other step is, okay, now you have to care for this vinyl. It's not like cloud music that requires no care. Owning vinyl means that you are now a steward of this culture and you have to take care of it. And you get to become a better reader as well.
This is true. And good point about the vinyl, Karen, because there's science behind vinyl and the needle to the groove. There's a healing aspects that come with all of that. Changing the vibration of music was something that was done kind of on the low. Even Prince talked about it.
Well, the funny thing is, when she put that first vinyl and the needle to the vinyl, she said, "Oh my God, this sounds so much better than digital music."
Yeah, it reminds me of when my mom used to play she played the 3 Degrees. And I used to love that record. You know what I mean? Well, one in particular, but when you hear that little static at the beginning, you put
the little chicken frying in the background.
Yeah, man, it's something special to that, right?
Yeah. Hey, Karen, you know, if you and Coach haven't been to JB's in West End, they got the best vinyl at great prices as well. So check them out.
Definitely.
Okay, we're gonna put that on our list. We've been doing the vinyl hop every weekend.
Yeah, JB's Record Lounge right there in West End.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay, so I think that everybody's kind of spoke on just a little bit about the connecting power of hip hop. So at this point, Mina had something that was on her mind, and I think that it's going to be kind of interesting. Let me sit back and hear what she has to say.
Yeah, so again, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom today with me and everyone here. And I just kind of wanted to dig into the cultural appropriation aspect of this conversation. And I have like so many questions in my mind all at once. But I think the main question that I want to kind of explore with you is what the difference is between respecting a culture, appreciating a culture, maybe adapting elements that make up the culture, and appropriation. And this is something that Sundiata and I have been, discussing in relation to mostly like Asian American or Asian music that utilizes a lot of hip hop or rap. And also thinking about the ways in which there is a history in the US of Asian American and African American solidarity, even as there is much more work in that arena that can be done. But for me, like, I know friends who fell into hip hop because it spoke to them as a way to see themselves beyond what white America was telling them that they were. And like similar to the Black Power movement and the Civil Rights movement, I know there are Asian Americans in particular who have looked towards Black folks for seeking tools for liberation. And so Sundiata and I have also talked about how, martial arts and Bruce Lee kind of was, there is that crossover effect between the Asian and Black populations here, and that martial arts sort of like also was incorporated into elements of hip hop culture too. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there in terms of, you speaking to the appropriation aspect. I feel like I have very specific questions around appropriation, but I'll just open with that broader question.
Server. Minister Server.
Okay. I think this is a longer, deeper conversation, of course. But to me, it definitely goes to the intention of the people. If you just want to take the elements but don't care about the people, when I was doing work with KRS-One, KRS-One has a fans of every race that you can think of. One of the things that happens is when we talk about the culture, sometimes people from other backgrounds, they're not really concerned about the struggle part. They just want to take the elements, from it, particularly when it comes to the commercial side. So You know, rap music is the #1 genre of music in the world right now. So even though, you know, Q-Tip told us back in the day, rap is not pop. If you call it that, then stop. You know what I'm saying? Rap really is pop right now. So I think it's hard to really, you know, pinpoint exactly what is cultural appropriation and what is appreciation and respect, because I think it goes by case basis sometimes. But when you have these corporations, as Edo was saying earlier, that are going back using rap music, they don't really care about the culture. They just use rap music because it's popular and they want to sell a product. So that would be cultural appropriation. But at the same end, those artists that have back catalogs, it was also saying that own their back catalog, then they're getting money from that. But if they don't, it's like the corporation is circulating the money amongst themselves. So I think, you know, these conversations, you know, because to me, it's not even a racial thing when it comes to cultural appropriation. You have some people, like anybody that tells me that they're involved in hip hop just to get a bag, that's cultural appropriation to me, you know, because I look at the fullness of the whole culture. But when you look at other races, a number of times, you know, as the definition that Sundiata had up there, they'll take, you know, the most stereotypical parts of the culture, you know, to uphold them. So if you're not, you know, doing this and yo, 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 or, you know, that type of stuff, then they'll look at you as hip hop. Whereas though, you know, we have a responsibility to show the fullness of the culture and to hold people accountable, including ourselves.
Hey, word. Anybody else want to add on to that? That was definitely heavy.
I agree. I just feel like it's a case by case situation. I could speak in California and Los Angeles. The Latino community keeps hip hop alive out here financially. You know, the old school shows, they're heavily into it, you know, like more than anybody else here. So, and you have major problems and gangs out here, you know, but that aspect of hip hop, like the hip hop I'm from, it's no problems. Blacks and Mexicans, Asians, they all together, and it's a good tool. You know what I'm saying? What's different because of COVID? But before, like the type of hip hop I come from, like 90s hip hop and stuff like that, that's the type of crowd that it attracts. That Ice-T had a club out here called United Nations. It was ran by Ice-T and one of Japan's dopest DJs, DJ Utaka. You know what I'm saying? For 10 years. And so it's normal out here. A lot of crews out here and stuff that have a lot of different cultures inside the crews. But as a whole, Server's right. It's the corporations. So it's kind of hard, you know, as a whole to talk about it. But case by case scenario, I feel like hip hop has done its job. And so many other kids from different backgrounds, they relate to it because it's like a rebel type music. So, you know, I love it. I feel like all these different parts of the world that get involved with the culture, it just helps it to me.
Jump on in, Karen.
I was gonna say, the measure that I use is, you know, where we're from, they say you have to do the knowledge or you have to have knowledge of self. So that determines whether or not it's appropriative or it's appreciative. I mean, and it, like Coach and Mr. Server said, it's not along the lines of race in these days. It's just basically whether you're appreciating it or you're just using it for your personal gain. When we've done our classes and our workshops, some of the most knowledgeable students and young people that we have were our white students. I mean, they could tell us things about hip hop sometimes that blew our minds, and it blew the other students' minds who you think, okay, because of how they look, they're from the culture. But that's not always the case.
Exactly.
So, you know, that's the litmus test. Are you doing your knowledge or are you just using this for gain?
Yeah, and just to add on, you know, Server talked earlier about international culture. You know, one of my good brothers is a Spanish professor, you know, also, you know, one of my best friends, one of these, you know, we all in a group together and we do a lot of meetings. but he speaks Spanish, and he's been to Ecuador. He's been to all of these countries in Central America and South America. And he always says that if you find a political movement, you're going to find hip hop internationally. That's the sound of the struggle. That's the sound. You know, it's something that unites, but it also is something that speaks to the people and the uprisings that are happening. Matter of fact, with what's going on in Palestine, one of the most shared videos right now is a young Palestinian boy going on and talking about what's going on in
I saw that.
Palestine right now.
Nina just sent that to me the other day.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
I
mean,
was like,
you
word.
know, this culture, you know, one of the only student that I have that's b-boying is from Vietnam. You know what I'm saying? He's the only b-boy that's one of my students. They're all into hip hop, but he's the only one that's b-boying. You know what I'm saying? And that's it, that appropriation. But I think it also goes to something that not only our youth, but we all take for granted. We take the culture for granted a lot of times.
Yes,
When
we
it's
do.
new to someone, it becomes, you know, something that they're real excited about and want to learn more about it. But when you hear it on the radio every day and in every commercial, like was said earlier, then you kind of take it for granted.
You know, as you said that, Chief, I had a thought. The hip hop is almost, in a way, reminds me of what happened in this land, where you had people who were in a certain position, bumped over the head, forgot who they were, forgot what was going on, and it was left in the hands of stewards. The stewards were supposed to hold it until they woke up again. I'm talking about the Moors. I'm not going to get super deep into it, but my point is that it's almost like hip hop has been passed from those who did it into the hands of those who are worthy of heart, and they're the stewards of it and are holding it down. We have to find and support them so that they can continue to move forward. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of an interesting like a parallel.
Yeah, you know, and at the same time, those people are looking for us. You know what I'm saying? They want to connect, you know, particularly, you know, people that have grown up in that experience, you know, because hip hop is such a young culture. You know, our pioneers still actually walk the earth with us, thank God. You know what I'm saying? They're still here with us. But also, you know, one of the things that hip hop, you know, allows people to do is, you know, we talking about the Black people and Asian people. As we celebrate Brother Malcolm's birthday, we also want to celebrate Sister Yuri CoChise Yama. I'm not saying the name wrong. Who was a comrade of Malcolm X.
Right.
And you know, those are one of the things that we, again, hip hop is a way that we can teach those different type of things to blend the culture. Because mind you, it's always the corporations that's trying to separate us so they can make money. You know, that's how they make money, by keeping us separated. And hip hop, you know, in my opinion, that's one of the reasons why they changed what hip hop was, because it was bringing people together way too much. You know, and that's something that they didn't want to happen. So they, you know, put a couple of disruptors in there. But we have to make sure that as we're celebrating, you know, the heroes that are known like Malcolm, that we're celebrating Sister Yuri as well, because a lot of people don't know that, you know, when the shots were shot at the Auburn ballroom, where people was running one way, Sister Yuri ran to Malcolm. You know, she was the one that was right there with them. We have to teach that history as well. So there's a strong connection between the Black and Asian communities that's not talked about enough, in my opinion.
Oh yeah.
And I want to shout out Joint One. That's a crew in Japan of DJs that kind of supported my crew more than anybody else for years. Sending us in, playing our records. Much respect to Joint One Radio and brother Joey Slick. You could compare him to like a Red Alert or something. Out here, he's been playing our music for a long time, over 15 years. So there's alliances that happened through hip hop. I met them at a conference in Reno, and we've been great friends for over 15, 20 years now.
Hey, so as you're all pointing out, there are many different things that we can take from hip hop. We can take those connections that we make with other cultures. We can learn from them. You know what I mean? That was a nice little set. It's interesting you said that, Minister Server, about Sister Yuri, because I just became aware of her like recently. And you know, with this at this time when there's this, I would say, painted static. You know, it almost seems painted to me because, like some of us said, when I was growing up, we didn't really have problems with the Asian cats. You know what I mean? It was like, you know, people did what they did. You know, we went down to watch the movies downtown. You know, everybody was enjoying Bruce Lee and the Run Shaw joints and Run Shaw joints. You know, I don't remember people saying, "Oh, well, I don't like them Japanese or them Chinese dudes or them Korean dudes." Matter of fact, me and Frank used to study Korean art. You know, from young children. So it was like we had inner connection with it, and so you know, when I watch the news, some European dude runs up and kills a bunch of people in a place, and then the news is saying, "Oh, well, we got black and Asian tensions," and I'm like, "Wait a minute, how'd that happen?" You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm gonna leave that alone, but there is a very strong connecting force in hip hop, and we can see how it can go culturally. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, and also, you know, the young people, you know, they anime, you know what I'm saying? They loving that anime right now. I know we grew up on anime, we just ain't know it was anime. But you know, the young people are really into it, you know what I'm saying? So for all you Voltron fans and all that other stuff, Japanese animation was a part of what we grew up on, Star Blazers and all
Yes,
that
sir.
stuff, you know what I mean?
My brother Frank is laughing because we used to watch that every day after school. We watched Force 5 and we watched Star Blazers one at a time. Boom, boom.
Speed Racer.
Speed Racer,
Right.
Grandizer Go. Yeah. All of that good
Diane
stuff.
Thor, all of that, you know what I'm saying?
Well, maybe at this time it would be good to open up for a couple of questions or comments from the audience. We had some people who had some things to say in the chat box as well. Before I do that, Diane said something I thought was kind of deep. She said that hip hop makes a way out of no way, and now hip hop is original American culture. You know, and that was what it was for, to make a way out of nothing. That's what we've been doing a long time, you know, banging beats in the kitchen, you know, and kicking the rhyme. Hey, yo, Cheeks, bust that beatbox, man. My radio ain't working. You know what I'm saying? That was hip hop, and that is survival. And it goes to a primal instinct of how to make it through tough times. And that's something we've always done. So go ahead, Frank. I know you had something.
Okay, well, I think that one of the things that I've heard but not explicitly mentioned was the responsibility aspect of hip hop and of both consumers and artists, and if we have a responsibility for the art that we make. That can be for anybody.
Well, yeah, like I said earlier, that's a part of hip hop, and I feel with me personally, that's beginning to be a little complicated for me, because like I said, when I got into this, I kind of thought everybody thought the same way. It was a definite responsibility, like certain things you don't want to do in front of your mother and grandmother, period.
Right.
You know, it's not like that. You know what I'm saying? I thought it was like that. It's like, you know, that's the scary part to me. Is that now things that we had to do as kids, I'm just gonna be honest, to watch something on TV late at night or something, you know, we sneak in and turn it on. Now you can get it on your phone at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the morning, you know. So I feel like it's very complicated because I feel like, you know, our struggle here in America, it's a definite responsibility about what we put out there, you know. But the culture, like I said, of America and capitalism and money, when you're making money, it's not like people are not questioning. They're just looking at the results and the flash. They're not looking at like what you had to do to get that money.
Right.
And I feel like that's a serious problem right now in hip hop. Nobody cares. It's just about what you have. No disrespect to anybody, you know, but the Gordon Gekko type mentality in hip hop that we're pushing, I don't see how we could complain about America because we're just doing the same things and pushing out the same type of leadership. You know, by any means necessary is turning by any means necessary how you make money.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's the problem with me.
Cheese, build on that.
For me, I look at it a little bit different, and I agree with everything that you're saying. But I think the thing for me is we got to separate the industry from the culture. There's a responsibility in culture. Is there a responsibility in art? To a certain extent? But you know, man, you can't be dissing the rappers and then go around and watching you know, Martin Scorsese. If you're gonna hold the rappers to that big accountability, why don't we ever hold Schwarzenegger and Scorsese and all these other people to that same thing? We got to hold the elders to a responsibility of educating the young people. But I don't know necessarily that art and responsibility, that's up to the individual artist, in my opinion. I know that for my art, I have always created art that was responsible. But that's my choice. But that don't mean that I ain't listen to the art that wasn't responsible and be bopping my head and loving that too. So I think we got to have, like Minister Server said earlier, there's a balance responsibility. And when we say that messages are being pushed, we know who's pushing the messages. And that was my earlier point. The people who are doing it and pushing and encouraging these young artists, it's not even like they're encouraging 40-year-olds. They're encouraging 15-year-olds who don't have the same kind of worldview. They're encouraging them to make money and get rich off certain things. So do we put the responsibility on a 15-year-old or on the 40, 50-year-old person from another persuasion or even from our persuasion who's encouraging them to make music that might be deemed destructive?
No, I agree with you, brother. I agree with you 100%. But what I'm saying is this. I'm saying even the music that's supposed to be positive from our culture, right? And we're looking at the results of people. I'm not going to say, like I say, any names, but let's give a couple names. But Jay-Z or Oprah Winfrey, for instance, you know what I mean? What I'm saying is that if we don't dig deep and talk about how, you know, that it's not just the results of a person having money, the things we have to do towards it. And I'm not saying every artist has to come out being positive. I'm saying fundamental basic steps that we're skipping in our messages today. Because like I said, that the message now today is achieving the American dream, generational wealth. There's nothing wrong with that, but we're not talking about the things you have to do to achieve generational wealth, the people you have to step on, the treaties you have to make with these big corporations that we're talking about. But it's okay for people if it's for their own family and it benefits them. But what about the other people it affects? And I just feel like it's very complicated today. And it is not just on hip hop. I feel like this is a part of everything. So I agree with you. It's not, you can't just blame it on hip hop, no question. But we do have to take some type form of responsibility and not giving everybody a pass because they're making money.
I agree with you, brother Dedan. I think the other thing about that is we have to tell truth. I think we tell young people too many lies. We tell them a lot of lies. We tell them you go to college, you automatically gonna be successful. Not true. A lot of rappers went to college and they came out working jobs and they said, well, you know what? I'm gonna go do this music that's gonna make me some real money, or do other things in the community that may not make. Because I know brothers that, you know what I'm saying, one of the biggest drug dealers in my community, you know what I'm saying, he was able to get his thing going because he was a college educated brother. You know what I'm saying? So we just gotta start being honest with people. We also have to stress ownership to our young people. That's the whole thing. The owners, a lot of times, are the ones that take a different step because it's about not their personal branding. Because when we talk about personal branding, you talked about Jay-Z, but when Jay-Z go in the boardroom, he ain't Jay-Z, he's Sean Carter. You know what I'm saying? Two different people. So we got to be honest, you know what I'm saying? And I kind of like what Jay has done in terms of some of the some of the changes that he's made in terms of his music and other things. But I think you're right about the way that we have to express that you get to these places. And we have to be honest, you know what I'm saying? We losing a lot of hip hop pioneers.
Indeed.
You know what I'm saying? And we're not talking the truth about health or about the lifestyle that came with it back in the days. Let's be honest about what it is, you know what I'm saying? And, you know what I'm saying? Malcolm Gladwell had that book about redefining success. And I think we need to start redefining what success means in our community as well. And if we put it all on wealth, then, then people are going to continue to make those same choices.
There you go. And that's what I'm trying to say. Like, when we talk about Martin Luther King or Malcolm X, I'm talking about the basic fundamentals that made them good men.
Right.
We're not talking about that no more. We just talking about how much money you can make. You know what I'm saying? And those are, like, to me, when I got into hip hop, that's what spoke to me.
That's why I said that about the original, the classical definition to me about hip hop. It's about ethics.
Yes,
Operating from that space, then that's what we have.
Yes.
So as elders, that's our responsibility.
Yeah.
To give that to, because we can't assume as a teacher, I understand that it may not happen in the home. We assume, but there's so much things going on with these young people and the struggles that they're dealing with. We cannot assume that I'm just there to educate you. I'm there to help you beyond what the school board tells me that I have to do.
That's right.
So that we have to operate from that basic place of ethics, like we all say.
No doubt, no doubt. I want to jump in right here. Diane, you had a comment, and then I'm going to go to Annie Cooper, and she's going to ask a question.
Well, thank you. I want to agree with everything that's being said about the responsibility that we have, that hip hop has, and that we as individuals have and collectively have. But I don't want us to beat ourselves up. I want us to remember, never forget, we live and have always lived for hundreds of years in a white supremacist society. And the intention of that white supremacist society, it points a gun or a knife or anything they had, where? To Black people. We're in a white supremacist society that thrives on anti-Blackness. So at the same time that we're working on ourselves and we're educating, don't forget our history. I mean, get deep into our history. And Sundiata, we're going to have to, I'm thinking, we're going to have to do something on Moors and African Americans. We're going to have to do something and bring people together to discuss that. But anti-Blackness. And so I hear you on solidarity. I hear you on Asian culture and Latino culture. And I'm coming from all these different cultures, but I see anti-Blackness in ourselves and in our people that we should be in solidarity with. So we've got to get on this anti-Blackness and we're never going to get to where we want to go as long as white supremacy keeps aiming at anti-Blackness. We're going to have to at least know that and see that, open our eyes to that. So thank you.
Man, well said.
Well said, Diane. Well said. Annie Cooper, what is your comment? And you are on mute, ma.
Thank you. I find all of your comments very, very interesting. And as I listen, I think back to when I was growing up, and the guys in particular would stand on the street corner, and I guess as we called it at that time, rhyming. So want to remind you that hip hop or rapping in itself is not a new thing, that it evolves. And the most important thing that I want to bring out is, if you listen to the young poet laureate and the way she presents her poetry, it's hip hop. The rhythm that she uses is out of the hip hop culture. And this is a way that education plays a part in children's development. And as a substitute teacher in high risk schools, some of the children you cannot reach, but if you find a form that appeals to them, you can get through to them better. And that could be very important in teaching style.
No doubt.
Well spoken.
No
You're
doubt.
a very wise woman. So Lane, we got Lane. He is in the building. He does some work with process work, inner process work. Lane has been reaching out to me, telling me he was going to come and check this out for a minute. He has some interesting things to say, and I appreciate his courage, because he is always real. So go ahead, Lane. What you got on your brain?
First of all, just wow, big respect, and I've learning so much and just soaking it in. And I guess I'm just wondering, I got a 16-year-old kid, white kid, who is really into hip hop, but doesn't. I think he's more in it for the entertainment. It happens to be on his playlist when he's doing his workouts or something like that, and he listens to Tupac sometimes. He listens to different people, but I don't know if he's really getting what it's about. And he's definitely not going to be listening to me. I would love for him to be here and listening to this, but if I tell him to do it, that's going to be the last thing he does. But I guess I'm just wondering about the cultural appropriations on that side, like for some, white middle class kid to be listening, and like if anybody could speak to that, I'd appreciate it.
Okay, well, on that, Lane, that's an excellent question, and I would like to introduce one of our panelists who had a little trouble with his internet. He's known as Darc Angel, good friend of mine. He is a filmmaker. He's also an MC of magnitudes that you don't know nothing about. So, can you answer Lane's question, Darc Angel, as somebody who's been involved in hip hop over 30 years?
Yeah, definitely. And sorry for my late start, my power was out, but it just came on like,
No
I'm
worries.
so happy that it came on like right now. I was like, oh my, so my house is buzzing, so my kid comes running and we just got our power back on. But Lane, I do like to speak to that, because
let me show you.
It's hard to I'm on Zoom, guys.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
Hey, Vex. Hey, y'all.
My son's a hip hop artist too. Close my door. Close the door.
That's my family, y'all. My nephew.
Yeah, it's the family. So, to be drawn to creativity, it's hard to dismiss that. It's hard to dismiss soul and culture. And anyone who's drawn to that, even for someone who is a child of hip hop, is which I consider myself, I can be hardcore and say, oh yeah, only a certain amount of people should be listening to this. Only a certain amount of people should be involved in this culture. But I know how I'm drawn to certain things, and I know everyone has a soul. So it's like, you know, your son, along with so many other sons and daughters, are drawn to something that has a lot of culture, that has a lot of meaning to it, you know. So it's almost going to be impossible for them not to, you know. So when you say cultural appropriation, that's kind of a funny thing, you know what I'm saying, because he's drawn to something like, because I'm sure he's not, you know, specifically saying, oh yeah, I want to just be dabble into, you know, what was started as Black and Latino culture, and I want to appropriate right now, like right now, with nobody in the room, no one's here, I just want to sit here and start appropriating culture. Okay, go. Let me press my thing. Okay, I got the beat playing now. I'm appropriating. No, he's not doing that. He's literally like, yo, this feels good. These beats are nice. Yo, there's bass in it. There's soul in it. You know, and he's listening to other types of music that, you know, the kicks and the snares, they're light. It's on a drum set. But then you put on the hip hop, it's like, you know, it's like it's going through them. You can put the bass up. So there's nothing. You can't get rid of that, you know. So I don't really even, you know. So you're probably not going to be able to get them away from it. I don't think that you're trying, Lane, to try to get him away from it. You're trying to understand. Like, I don't know if you're trying to understand why he's so drawn, but I wouldn't worry about so much about the appropriation. I wouldn't worry about so much about that, you know. You know, the culture that I'm going to say we, just because I'm a part of it, is something that we live by. So that's the difference. You know what I'm saying? That's the little bit of the difference, because hip hop is built from 5 different things. You know, you got the MCing, which is the rhyming, you got the DJing, you got the breakdancing, you know, you got your you got the graffiti writing, you know what I'm saying? So there's a lot that it's built on, and that stuff is inside of us because we were there when it started. You know what I'm saying? So we understand we were there when it started. So because he wasn't there when it started, he's not going to get all the things that it enriches all of us. A lot of people aren't. You know what I'm saying? And then you talk about Miss Cooper. She was in it before we were even in it. So I'm listening to her saying, she's like, yo, none of this started. It was rhyming on the block. They was rhyming on the block before, you know, before y'all started even calling it hip hop, you know? And I feel great about hearing that. And then you look at some of the 40s stuff where you hear some of the bebop and the doo-wop, and you say they actually are rhyming. So just to finish out my point, Lane, you know, when you think of appropriating, you know, I always think of some a lady who's wants to put on like a Japanese, you know, I forgot what the kimono, and I even have a problem even thinking when that's even appropriating, you know what I'm saying? Because it's people trying out culture. So that appropriating thing, I was never cool with that. I was never cool with saying that people were cultural appropriating. You know, you're trying things out, you know. You know, it's a deeper conversation to say, okay, you know, it's the deeper conversation on that. It goes beyond hip hop when you start talking about, like, you know, what, you know, some Europeans have done to Black people, you know what I'm saying? And as a historical fact, and then getting a hold of their culture and trying to dismiss them from that culture, you know what I'm saying? Because some people on the whole, and when I want to talk about this later, I'm gonna wrap this up really, because there was a militarization of hip hop, you know what I'm saying? Back in the 80s, in the 70s and 80s, it was a creative thing, but then certain record companies and certain powers that be militarized hip hop. They made sure that we were listening to gangster music, and that's the music that was pushed on the radio. And they made sure that say, fuck bitch, and all these type of music, these are the music going to be pushed onto the radio. All of your X-Clans, all of your Public Enemies, all of your Poor Righteous Teachers, those forms of hip hop are not pushed towards the masses. They're not. And so this is the actual meeting. The militarization of hip hop actually happened. And so that's kind of a bigger thing, but not going, I wanted to just answer towards your appropriation thing. He's fine, man. You know, he's fine. You know, if he picks up a mic and starts rhyming, don't even think that's even going to be weird.
He said, relax in the power of hip hop, Lane.
Yeah, man. You know, because it really all is just a creative form of expression, you know, and he's trying to find a way to even express himself. He maybe not even there yet, but I wouldn't even. You probably should ask him if he has, if you want to get in. I don't want to, you get close to your son, all that, but he probably got a rhyme book. You never even know.
You know, the thing about hip hop, Darc Angel, is that, and Lane, is that when you really get into it, like again, it's a reflection of our society. So pretty much, if anything that you see in that is going to be reflective of what you're dealing with anyway, right? We may not want to hear it coming out of our kid's mouth, you know what I mean? But that's what it is. The child or the adult is now expressing how they feel about what they're dealing with. And we don't want to suppress expression. Right. If they decide to pick up a pen or if they decide to do a paintbrush, it's the same kind of thing. So did you have something you wanted to say, Nancy? How you doing, Nancy?
Oh, hi. How are you, Sundiata and everyone? Yes, I did want to say something. Hello, everyone. This is really a thought-provoking conversation, and I really haven't known that much about hip hop, so I thought, I'm riveted. So thank you for these insights and everyone sharing today. Thank you. I wanted to say that I wanted to speak to what Diane said about we live in a white supremacist culture, the social container in which all Black artists in music and all the arts and other artists of color, musicians, have work, this social container. And I wanted to just say a couple of sentences about the roots of that, because we all know that when the colonies started back in the 1620s, there were two theories going on. One was for the common good, and the other was, let's make money now that we're in a new economic situation and we don't have kings forcing us, to be serfs. And so the operational principles have always been, let's make money, even though there were theoretical thoughts about we should do for the common good. And a lot of white Americans still think that America is based on the common good, but it's totally been dedicated operationally to capitalism. And I just wanted to say that capitalistic emphasis has really gone viral since globalization. It's become, to me, a malignant form of capitalism, totally. There is no interest in the common good anymore. And all you have to do is look at COVID and the destruction of public health and education, and anything that has to do with the public good has been completely eroded over the last 30 or 40 years of American politics. And this malignant capitalism is partly due to globalization. These big companies can go to Thailand to get their employees. They don't have to work with the unions and the rules that were supposed to protect people in the United States. And so, I don't know. I just feel like everyone's struggling to work with a really malicious economic system that nobody really has a lot of control over anymore, except these giant international corporations. But I see hip hop and music and people of color in the United States will be making a contribution to exactly that point of how can we keep our humanity? How can we be ethical human beings in this setting? And our artists have to help lead us.
Indeed.
And no one knows better the inhumanity than the people of color in this nation who have suffered persistently, as Diane was pointing out, for 400 years with, malicious projections put on them.
Yes.
Appreciate that. Well said. Dedan? She said it all, huh?
Yeah.
Now we got some people out here also that we haven't heard from. There's a lot of, dark screens, but it's in the dark matter that you find the real battle. So if anybody out there wants to speak, like Mark or, I see Kay Sledge in the building, I see a lot of people. If you have something to say, this is that time. You got a question, comment, this is a collective brain. So let's work it. Anybody? I see Kate Aid. Hey, Kate, how you doing?
everybody. Thank you so much. This has just been an amazing learning experience. You know, so many of you have talked about this generational gap and like where you see generational continuity with hip hop. And I was curious to hear if there are younger artists who you're noticing who like maybe they don't even look or sound like traditional hip hop, but maybe they've got that community investment or that political drive. I'd be curious to hear who you're noticing out there.
Good question, Kate. And before anybody answers, and you guys can jump on in, I just want to say it is after 3 o'clock. Thank you for reminding me of that, Frank. And if anybody has to leave, we fully appreciate it. We love you for coming through. Come check us out next time. And as they say in the South, y'all come back now. So go ahead, speak on it.
If somebody I'm loving right now is No Name. You know what I mean? And not specifically for her music, but I mean during the uprising and everything that happened this year, here's a young lady that took her platform and started creating book lists and started educating herself politically, starting to be anti-racist and anti-capitalist, a young hip hop artist. I mean, it kind of blew me away, and I'm a big fan of the movement that she's creating.
Yes.
What's her name again, bro?
No Name.
Her name is No Name.
One word, No
From,
Name.
I believe she's from Chicago. No Name.
Gee, Dedan, why you ask that question?
Huh?
We have a friend named No Name as well. That's why he asked that.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
He's known as Big No Name.
Right.
So
I mean,
you know,
like, there's a and I'm actually listening out for that. You know, what she said was, is there any young artists who have like a community investment and a political drive? And I'm always listening out for that. You know, I'm always listening out for that, because that makes me feel like there's some type of a hope. You know what I'm saying? Because people who are our age in our 40s, who are children of hip hop, like direct children of hip hop, like we're trying to figure out if there's gonna be any turnaround in this. You know what I'm saying? We are like almost dying inside, hoping for a turnaround. But we're realists, so we see how the sister said about the capitalism. We understand what the capitalism is doing to the globalization, and there's no way to stop it, it seems. But in our heart of hearts, because hip hop is part of our heart, we're just hoping and praying that there's going to be some type of a turnaround. And so with that, when you're hoping and praying for a turnaround, when you're listening to music that's out, you're listening to the lyrics, you're just like, oh my God, what am I listening to? This is garbage. And then every once in a while you'll hear someone and you'll be like, oh, and it'll sit you up in your seat and you're like, oh, did he just say that? Mm-hmm. Oh, yo, how old is this kid? Oh, who is this? Right? And then the next song that they got is completely ridiculous. So you're saying, okay, well, at least that person has they have a brain on them, but they're being controlled by the label that they're signed under. So they can't go completely Public Enemy. They can't do that. You know what I'm saying? You could tell in certain songs. And one dude, his name is Little Baby. Now, he's one of the biggest artists that's out right now. Little Baby, and he's from Georgia, and he puts out, songs, but then he had a song that he put out, and I was like, okay. It was during the George Floyd thing, and he put out a song that was considered kind of with the don't shoot thing, and it was very racy of him to even actually do that. And even a lot of radio stations didn't even play the song. They never played it on 97, but they played it on 94. And it was political, and you could tell that in his lyrics that he was a community-based guy, and you could tell that he had some political things on his mind, but it feels few and far between, only because radio has been programmed.
That's not true.
Oh, okay, go on, bro. Keep telling me.
Go ahead. I'm just saying that, again, man, we have to really, look for what we want. One of the things that we know that there was a time when there wasn't such thing as rap radio. So we had to, be a part of the culture to even know what was going on. That same thing still exists in the culture. You know what I'm saying? So when you have young artists like a Corday YBN, who was a young artist that has something to say. When you have a artist like D-Smoke from out the West Coast that has something to say. There are a number of different artists out there that have things to say, but also in real life, we have to take it upon ourselves to search out young people as well. So, for example, last week to begin Hip Hop Appreciation Week down here in Atlanta, we had 2 international artists, John Cy Robinson and Stacey Elk, perform. But we also had 2 artists that was their first time performing ever. You know, a sister named Lioness and another brother named Solo Selassie and J5. So these are young artists that are not signed yet. They're not out there yet. But again, you know, if we're talking about the culture and the community, we have to, you know, give artists space to develop, and whether they decide to make it a career or not, it's really about them having a way to express themselves. One of the things that young people love about hip hop is that it gives them a chance to express themselves unfiltered. So even if we might not like the rap that they're saying, it goes back to what we said 25 some years ago. Rap is just something you do. Hip hop is something you live. But there are a number of artists that are out there. There's an artist by the name of Nisha Nice that, you know, wants to be the next kind of Queen Latifah, but her music is appealing to young people, you know, without having to take her clothes off and be sexual. There's an artist by the name of Shay Noir. There's a number of different artists out there that we, particularly the 40 and older, you know, because we're quick to talk about the artists that we don't like. But if you talk to people 40 and older, you ask them to name 5 artists that are under the age of 30 that they like, they're going to be challenged with that. And that's not the young people's fault, that's their fault. So there are a number of artists that are out there. We have to do the knowledge for real to keep our culture connected, particularly, in my opinion, those of us that are 40 and older. It is our responsibility to connect the connection. We can't expect young people to do what they just don't know to do.
Right about that, actually.
And
You're right about that.
Big up to everybody, because y'all putting out a lot of these young women like Oshun, you know, the
Oshun,
there's a lot of it out there.
Sarah.
Get the love. Sarah. Exactly. They're out there. We're just so conditioned, you know, to listen to the radio, like Server said. But also, I got to big up this a lot. KRS-One just dropped the album last year or earlier this year. You know what I mean? There's a lot of, you know,
album number 23.
Master Ace had a dope project the last
Edo G. Edo G and Master Ace got that series of projects out.
That's what I'm saying. So, you know, there's a lot of people that complain about hip hop and they don't even support the artists that they fans of when they come out with new stuff. So, I mean, we got to be, you know, Daddy O is doing stuff. Chuck D is still, and Public Enemy is still doing stuff. I mean, you know, we are so conditioned that the radio used to be, we told the radio what they should be playing.
Say that.
Radio to tell us what we should be listening to. That's now Cypher, man. Come on.
Word.
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
So, hold on a second. I'm working in technology. So, and this is to the points that were just made, right? And so I have to admit, I feel a little guilty because back then hip hop was feeding the world, and the industry jumped on it, right? But they didn't really know what they had. And so they were coming at you with all, you know, Public Enemy was out there, Poor Righteous Teachers, all this conscious hip hop. And for the most part, mainstream didn't even know what these cats were saying. Right. And then that, you know, times change, obviously. And currently, you know, with being so many spaces that have access to music and thought and what have you, it's really difficult to sort of know what's new and what's fresh. So I'm wondering if anyone can direct us to, and if not, if it doesn't exist, this is a great opportunity to create it, which is like, what's the website? Where's the one spot? You know, I just want one spot. The one spot I can go to hear some really dope new artists, because the stuff that's playing on the radio, I don't even want to listen to. You know what I mean? So that's a turnoff for me, but I know in my head, I'm intelligent enough to know that there are great artists out there doing young, great artists doing lots of interesting stuff, but I don't even know how to get access to that. And I don't have the time or the energy to do a lot of digging under layers and layers and layers of stuff to find out what's up. So like, does anyone know of a space where that stuff gets pulled together? Like, I didn't know about this Trinity College conference that's been going down. Right. So like, where's the space where you can kind of know what's happening, what's going on in hip hop world?
Go ahead, speak on that, Dedan.
Oh, I know about one. He said, I'm just going to name one. Minister Server, I think, will be a good person because he's on the front line of a lot of things. There's a radio show on right now from Loyola Radio in Baltimore, WLOY.org. It's called Hip Hop Revisited. Excellent show. It's one of the best shows on hip hop that you'll find. It's hosted by our brother named Salib Higgins. It comes on Saturdays from I'm on the West Coast, so 11 out here. I think it's 2 out there. It's 2 hours every Saturday. That's the best hip hop show I know.
Server, you got?
Can you put that information in the chat?
Yeah. Yes,
I'm about to do it right now, actually.
Oh, okay.
Is it WLOY Loyola Radio, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know y'all got some music that's dope too, man. You know what I'm saying? Because I heard y'all stuff too. You know what I'm saying? So
Who?
I said Darc Angel. I heard y'all stuff, and y'all stuff is dope, and it's really speaking to that. I think sometimes we got to be the change. You know what I'm saying? That we want to.
Yes.
Thank you, man.
I want to make a suggestion too, if it's not already happening. It's the thing about pipeline. Those people who are in the business should be bringing young talents behind them and helping them to understand. Also important for me and my generation, the artists should be conscious of the language they use and the speed that they speak, because half the time I don't know what you're talking about. And it would the reason I know don't push me because I'm close to the edge is because I knew exactly what he was saying, and it was so true for me at the time. And I would like to see more of that, and a lot less of the negative and the vulgar languages that some artists use.
Ma, I'll speak to that as a dissenting voice, since you're my mother, and I can say it in a nice way. To speak to what CoChise said, and I just want to say, you have to choose what you choose to watch. When you turn the television on and you choose a movie, you can't tell those movie people, well, listen, y'all cussing too much. You choose not to watch that movie. You choose to watch a rated G movie. So hip hop can have ratings, and hip hop can express itself in different types of ways, and everybody doesn't speak the same way. So I understand your sentiment, and for your generation, that should be respected. And there's something to think about as artists when we make things. But then there's also a larger world, and people think differently and express themselves differently.
But that's why some people disregard the whole set.
Well, I mean, you have a point, but at the same time, they I think it's what Chiefs was saying, and me and you can talk about this tomorrow at our family meeting. But what I think what Chiefs is saying is that you can't, there's hip hop is too large to put in a box. There's too many different forms of expression. It's like art. You're an artist. You draw beautiful pictures and you know how to color and all of that. Somebody who decides to draw a naked body might see that as being art. Somebody else might see that as being vulgarity. It's that choice that is art, and that's what makes it what it is.
Respect, D. Don't put me in it.
she's gonna get me next week, y'all.
Don't put me in it. But one thing I do want to say, hip hop is a culture that comes from the streets and stuff. But I think as we get older, we got to redefine with some of these terms. Like one of my, you know, the youngins call me a OG, you know what I'm saying? But I ain't never been a gangster.
Right.
I think OG to mean older God, older guru, or older Jegna, as you know what I'm saying, in terms of a mentor type. You know what I'm saying? I ain't claiming a gangster. I'm claiming somebody who was going to help my community and help these youngins.
Big up, big up.
And to add on, hip hop just, I mean, it breeds. I come from a special place because I'm from the West Coast, but most of my influence from hip hop comes from the East Coast, right? As I got older and I moved back to the West Coast, I realized how important environment is in somebody's actual display of music. It's very important. Like I said, I was raised under the tutelage of, you know, Malcolm X and Geronimo Pratt, and come from a Black Panther type family. So that was my mind state. So I'm all about unity, which is anti-West Coast, because the West Coast is built on being anti-Black, because gangbanging is anti-Black, right? Because we kill each other, right? So I wasn't into NWA coming up, you know what I mean? Because I come from a different background, even though my cousin who's in hip hop started one of the biggest Crip gangs in Los Angeles, right? But so what I'm saying is it took me 49 years to understand that everybody can't see the same thing. I couldn't understand why everybody in my hood wasn't listening to Gang Starr, right? I couldn't understand. I'm like, man, but as I got older and I moved back to Los Angeles, I started to understand these different philosophies, how they play out. I'm just being real. In LA, the culture of music, it wasn't about how intelligent you sound, because gangbanging, it's about the most notorious person. It's not about how eloquent their words sound. It's about the work they put in on the street. That's what gets the respect. You know what I'm saying? Somebody like Nipsey Hussle, it's been two rappers from out here, like on the main scale, Nipsey Hussle and Ice Cube were two of the first ones for the culture out here to like preach using your brain to get out of something besides just violence, even though they still have violence in their music. I'm talking about like being intelligent and reading books and being a gangster. They were like the first ones. Before that, Tookie Williams and Raymond Washington, it was all about your hands or the gun, you know? So I realized as I got into West Coast gangster music, I'm very critical, but I had to understand the psyche, you know, as a man, understanding like this has been taught for generations. They just didn't come up with this. This is how we live out here. You know what I'm saying? Now, the positive aspects in some people's eyes, they might not see it that way. You see it in 65 and you see it in 92 out here. That's how we get down. That's why Pac said, only in Cali will we riot, not rally. You know what I mean? So it's about understanding the environment, and that's gonna explain a lot of how the music is coming out to me.
Server?
Yeah, I wanted to kind of go back to what Mark was saying about as far as you're checking for the different artists. I don't know if it's one site, but wherever you're getting your music from streaming, if there's an artist that you like, they typically have a radio station that's kind of tied to that artist. And there'll be a number of artists that are similar to that artist. So for example, if you put in Sa-Roc, S-A-R-O-C, and you go on Spotify or Apple Music, or whatever the case, if you listen to Sa-Roc and you go down and you go to Sa-Roc Radio, a number of artists will be similar, you know, in that same type of theme, the same type of style, the same type of subject matter. You can do that for all different type of artists. So if you go to Corday YBN, who's a young artist out of Chicago, that's, you know, doing some great things. Same thing with D Smoke. So I don't know if it's one site, but one of the things that I do on social media is highlight young artists, because again, I'm 56 years of age, and a number of my peers, when I have conversation with them, the conversation is so limited because they haven't gone beyond 2000 as far as the music that they listen to, because as our coach was saying, they're still relying on the mainstream. And we know if you listen to the mainstream, you know, back in the 90s, the whole dumbing down of the music, you know, Jay-Z talked about it as well. You know, Dedan talked about, you know, it's about selling records. It's not about trying to enlighten or inspire and empower anybody. It's about selling records. So every now and then, you know, you get someone mainstream like a Kendrick or a J. Cole, you know, who has something to say. But for the most part, it's like any other cultural music. You have to seek it out. You have to search and find it. And one thing that's really beautiful now is that we do have technology that makes it a lot easier. It's like I said, if it's an artist that you know that's on the kind of vibe that you like, you know, put them in your search play for the radio. And again, you'll find a number of different artists, particularly young artists that are making that same music. And, you know, a number of times they're particularly looking at us that, you know, again, we're complaining about young artists that we don't like. Again, we take the approach, we dig up the artists that we do like. So as I said last week, you know, I was talking to the young artists that never performed before, and I'll put them on a platform where they perform with 2 international artists, you know, to let them know that there's a whole community that supports what you're doing, even though the mainstream may not be supporting it yet. You know, as Coach was also saying, we control the narrative. There's hip hop corporation and there's hip hop culture. Both are necessary and both are needed. But the culture is always going to be stronger than the corporation. So for those of us that are looking for more balance, you know, this is a great time for rap music and hip hop culture in general. I mean, this is another golden age. We don't call it that because, again, there's a mainstream narrative that is bigger than the voice that we have culturally. But this is a great time. Hip hop is in great shape, music-wise and everything else. We're in great shape. Don't believe the hype, as Public Enemy said. We good.
It's crazy to hear you say that, man. Like I think you may be the first person I know that was of this age to say that. You know what I'm saying? Like that hip hop is in great shape right now. You know what I'm saying? It's actually good to hear you say that. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I just wanted to say that. You know what I'm saying?
You know, yesterday, for those that don't know, we just broke ground for the Universal Hip Hop Museum up in the Bronx. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, exactly. We should be excited about that. You know, I'm honored to be on the education committee for the Universal Hip Hop Museum, where we're creating curriculums and the whole nine. So we're in great shape. Again, it's just not being broadcast on the mainstream because it's not for the mainstream. It's for the culture.
You know what? Really, that if I don't want to cut nobody off. Go ahead, Coach. I want to let you say what you got to say. Yeah.
You know, we got a hip hop fellowship at Harvard right now. You know what I'm saying? There's so much thing. We got you know, hip hop artists at universities teaching classes. The brother Edo G was just on here talking about some work he just did with a professor. We are in a beautiful, beautiful place.
That's right. The Right Track program is down with Impact.
We never thought.
The Right Track program is now merged with Impact in Atlanta Public Schools. Another step in hip hop's progression. I love the way that Minister Server's attitude throughout the entire thing. Everybody, your energy, your words, your wisdom. But I've really been feeling your spirit, brother, as far as, you know, having that faith that we're gonna keep moving, that hip hop is in a good place. It may not be where we want it. From everything that's been said, we got to understand where we want it to, you know, let's not be in the dark about it, but having that positive, you know, having that positive view.
And, you know, not to cut you off, but also, you know, let me just say again, we have to put it in context of where we are. We're less than 50 years old as a culture. We're only about 25 years as even talking about hip hop the way that we're talking about it right now. These are new conversations. You know what I'm saying? Yes. So again, let's not be, as Diane was saying earlier, let's not be too harsh on ourselves. Let's, you know, kind of slow down and take it back and look what the Creator has given us. Look what the ancestors have laid out for us. Now we can project what we want to be for our children and our children's children. And let me give a plug again for the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace. For those that are not familiar with it, if you want a digital copy or a poster copy, we'll certainly reach out to me through Hip Hop Ministries. 314@gmail.com. I would love, that's a document. Again, we just celebrated 20 years, and internationally, that document is no more than it is in the US. And we have to change that. We have to make sure that we're using these principles as another tool. We're not trying to make people say that this is the only way, but we need tools and strategies. Our young people are being assaulted. We have to have tools and strategies that they can use at their disposal, you know, and hip hop is most certainly, in my opinion, the most revolutionary tool that we can use.
Well, Minister Server and everybody who came in here, really those positive words towards where we need to be going, because we're going to kind of wind it down. But I will say this. I want to give a thanks to all the females who came today and expressed their opinions and their thoughts. To understand that power of yin and yang is very important. We were dealing with the concept of the cup being half full or being half empty. And so when you have that yin and yang principle, you have to activate that female spirit. Diane told us earlier, don't beat ourselves up. My mother told me when I was 19, don't hold the world on your shoulders. It took hundreds of years for you to get here. You only 19 years old, boy. So, you know, it takes sometimes that yin energy to bring you back into line with yourself and know that we're going to keep moving and we ain't going nowhere. Hip hop will be here forever and ever, right? That's right. So with that being said, I don't want to cut anybody off. I would like to give Diane a chance to speak on the way out, as she is the founder and illustrious leader of the Racial Justice Collaborative, which has been giving us many opportunities to express ourselves, to have creative programming, and she's the spirit and mind behind all of that. She brought a lot of good minds with her, like Mina Kim and Lane and her son, Frank, who, if y'all don't know, is a genius, and he'll kick you in the mouth too if you didn't know. So go ahead, Diane, please speak to him.
Well, thank you, Sundiata. And it's really, I'm astonished with how much learning, collective learning there is. And so I want to agree with some of what we've talked about. Solidarity is definitely something we need to move toward. But while we're moving toward it, let's hold responsibility where it needs to be held. The European whole effort toward white supremacy, and in the United States of America, the government of the United States, we're in a racial reckoning. And so that's why I'm pointing out this anti-Blackness. Yes, a lot of people have been pulled into, you know, race issues, but the target are Black people, and the real target of the United States of America, African Americans. And so we need to look together. We're moving in this racial reckoning toward a time of when we're going to collectively say reparations. And so what we're doing now in the Racial Justice Collaborative, we're collecting information, we're studying hard on the history of white supremacy and the history of people in the United States, so that when we get to the reparations part, when we're coming up on that in October, we're going to have another race retreat, and we're going to marshal all the evidence that we've collected to say, when we say reparations, this is what we're talking about. And we're not thinking we're the only. There are lots of groups that are starting to work on this. And why we're in a racial reckoning is because it's time. It's always been time, but now it's time, and we're opening up. Spiritually, we're waking up to our power. We are powerful beings. We don't have limits. And so cast off those chains.
That's right.
It's like what Malcolm said, you know, it's our minds. So cast off any belief in any limits that anybody puts on you. So on behalf of the Racial Justice Collaborative, we've got a series of events coming up on Juneteenth. We're doing a Juneteenth event, and I hope to see everybody here there. And that we're going to talk about the building of wealth, and the redlining. Middle class wealth is built on home ownership. And when we look at Black people and homes, and we look at COVID, and we say, how did Black people get in the condition of being like in just segregated? How do we get to be such a segregated? It's intentional. So we're bringing an event on June 19th, and Lane that you met, and he's still here, he's going to talk about white wealth. How did white people, the GI Bill, our parents, they were veterans. They did not get the opportunity of the GI Bill. Redlining. We're going to talk about redlining. My father was a veteran, Black veteran. And so he did not, he was redlined. And so we're going to talk about that and bring more of those kinds of things. We've got programs on wealth and wealth creation. We're going to look at the big companies in the United States and the world who built their wealth on slavery. And so when we start talking about reparations, yeah, we want all these Brown universities, Harvard, and we want all of them. And we want clearly the United States government, because there was governmental participation in clearly, I mean, desegregation that just started to happen. We've only been, as I said, and Mark liked this. Mark is my son-in-law. And so he likes this. We've been free-ish for about, maybe 60 years. We're free-ish because don't forget, we had almost 100 years of separate but equal under Plessy. And so we've been ostracized and humiliated and kept down and kept the wealth out of our hands. And Black Wall Street, an example of that. So don't take all the responsibility on us.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for those words, Diane. She always adds a positive spin at the end of anything or at the beginning. I love her. Love my own mother. And I want to thank everybody for coming. Mina Kim has put in such hard work. Her, Frank Eason, Minister Server being such a down-to-earth brother, came off the cuffs and like, I'm coming on in. My man CoChise and Karen for always doing what they do and being helpful. Dedan Skillz is being my boy, because that's how we do. And of course, Darc Angel, you know what I mean? I want to big up Edo G and Mopreme and everybody else who came out to support. Thank you so much. And we will see you at our next Racial Justice Collaborative joint. Big up, salute.
Salute everybody.
Everybody.
And listen, I'll put the contact information in the chat if people want a copy of the Hip Hop Declaration of Peace. If I can be of service any way, holler at me. This is what I do. I love to be of service. Thank all of you. Sundiata, thanks for this dynamic panel. Allow me to be involved with this. Amina, thanks for the information. Diane, everybody involved. Dedan, yo, we gotta get up, fam.
Yeah, I was just saying.
Karen,
I'm gonna hit you.
This is hip hop. Bring it together, y'all. Bring it together.
Yeah, join us on the Racial Justice Collaborative.
No doubt.
Thank you.
I'm down.
I'm gonna have my mother come on that too.
Thank you.
Okay, y'all.
Everybody.
One love and keep that one thought together.
Word.
One.
Peace.
Wow.